It happened on a Thursday morning when I rushed into the bank, rain still dripping from the ends of my braids, my husband's words pounding in my skull like a headache. "It's nothing, baby, just a few papers. You know I handle all that." Anaya had barely slept. At 35, exhaustion sat on her shoulders like a second coat. She'd worked the late shift the night before at the clinic, gone home after midnight, taken a quick shower, and collapsed into bed. She might have slept if it weren't for the argument. It had started small, the way the worst ones always did. A bill on the kitchen counter, a red logo in the corner, her name printed in bold at the top. "Why is this in my name?" she'd asked, still in her scrubs, shoes kicked off by the door. "Derek, I thought the utilities were under your account." He hadn't even looked up from his phone. "It's just a statement, Anaya. They mix things up. You know how companies are. Stop stressing over every envelope." She'd pressed. She always did. "We're already tight this month. I'm just trying to understand what's actually ours. The clinic messed up my overtime pay." And that's when he'd dropped it, with that same smooth tone he used on clients. "Look, I've got us covered, okay? In fact," he'd finally met her eyes, "I'm going down to the bank tomorrow to refinance some stuff, open a line of credit for a new project. I just need you to come sign a couple papers with me. That's it. 5 minutes. Then we're set." "Sign what?" she'd asked. "For what project?" His jaw tightened just enough for her to notice. "You want me to build this company or not? You want to stay in this little apartment forever? It's just business paperwork, Anaya. You always say you trust me, but the moment I do anything bigger than a grocery run, you act like I'm trying to scam you." The guilt hit like it was supposed to. He was good at that. She'd backed off, tired, heart sore. "I'm not saying that. I don't like signing things I don't understand." He'd thrown his arm around her shoulders, kissed her temple, phone still in his other hand. "Then tomorrow we'll go together. The lady at the bank will explain it. You sign, we leave. And then maybe you can stop worrying for once and let me handle something." She'd nodded, more to end the conversation than because she felt safe. Later that night, when he fell asleep snoring, she'd lain awake staring at the ceiling, replaying the words, "just a few papers," over and over like a loop. Now, standing in the glass doorway of the downtown branch, she felt the echo of that sleepless night in her bones. The bank lobby was bright and too cold, that artificial kind of cold that makes you suddenly aware of every damp patch on your clothes. The floor gleamed, polished to a mirror shine. Behind the counters, tellers in navy uniforms smiled at customers with practiced warmth. Screens flickered with loan offers and cheerful families. Derek was easy to spot. He sat at a small desk near the back, across from a young man in a slim suit. He saw her and lifted his hand, flashing the grin he always used when he wanted something. "There she is," he said when she approached, standing to kiss her cheek. The hug was quick, distracted. His eyes went back to the screen on the desk. "Told you she'd come." "Mrs. Collins?" the suited man asked, standing and offering his hand. His name tag read Ethan, loan specialist. "So glad you could make it in. We've already set everything up. We'll just need your signatures to finalize things." Anaya's stomach clenched. Signatures, plural. She shook his hand anyway, polite, automatic. "You're with the bank, right? Not with my husband's company?" "Oh, yes, of course," Ethan chuckled, gesturing for her to sit. "I handle small business accounts all the time. Derek's told me so much about you. He says you're the one keeping everything together at home." Derek laughed like it was a compliment. Anaya sat, her bag held close to her side. On the desk, a neat stack of papers waited, clipped together. Her name was visible on the top page, printed in crisp black ink. Her heart thudded harder. "See?" Derek said, tapping the stack. "It's all right there. Refinance on the old line, new revolving credit, better rates. They needed your name on a few things because we're married. That's all. Because we're married." Those 3 words felt like a hand on the back of her neck. "Can I?" Anaya reached for the top page. Her fingers trembled just enough that she noticed. "I want to read what I'm signing." Derek let out a tiny sigh, the kind other people might not catch. She heard it loud and clear. "Babe, we don't have all day," he murmured. "I gotta be at the site by 11. We went over this last night. It's literally just to help us qualify. They won't approve if your name isn't on it." Ethan gave a sympathetic smile, the kind people use on nervous customers. "Of course you can read it, Mrs. Collins. It's just standard language. Nothing out of the ordinary. Joint responsibility, collateral agreement, personal guarantee. Honestly, most couples don't even bother reading it line by line. Joint, collateral, personal guarantee." The words hit her like small pebbles. Not yet painful, but impossible to ignore. "I still want to see it," she said. Her voice sounded softer than she felt. "I sign a lot of charts at work without reading, and that's already a bad habit. I'm not doing that here." For a split second, something flashed across Ethan's face. Irritation? Nervousness? It was gone too fast. He turned the papers toward her anyway. As he did, movement caught her eye. At the far end of the lobby, behind a glass-walled office, a woman stepped out. She was in her 40s maybe, dark brown skin, hair in a smooth bun, wearing a fitted blazer the color of charcoal. Her presence felt different from the other staff. Steadier somehow, quieter, but heavier. Their eyes met for a second. Then the woman glanced down at a tablet in her hand, her expression tightening. She looked at Anaya again, at the papers on the desk, at Derek. She started walking toward them. Anaya tried to focus on the first paragraph, but the words blurred. The undersigned, hereafter referred to as guarantee, acknowledges full responsibility for. Her throat went dry. Why did her name appear so many times? Why did Derek's appear so few? "See," Derek said, tapping a line farther down with his finger before she'd finished the first section. "It just says that if anything happens with the business, we're both covered. It's protection. That's what you wanted, right? Security?" His hand hovered over the pen, nudging it toward her. The air shifted before the pen touched her fingers. A soft scent of citrus and paper drifted in as someone stepped up beside her chair. Anaya glanced up. The woman in the charcoal blazer stood there now, closer than she'd expected. Her name tag read, Camille Johnson, branch manager. "Excuse me," Miss Johnson said with a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Collins, Ethan, sorry to interrupt." Derek's jaw tightened. "We're in the middle of signing, actually." "I know," Camille said calmly. Her gaze moved deliberately from Derek to the stack of papers, then to Anaya's face. "Collins?" "Yes?" Anaya's voice came out smaller than before. Camille's smile softened just a fraction. "Not for Derek, for her." "Could you please step into my office for a moment?" she asked quietly. "Alone. There's something I need to clarify with you before you sign anything." For a moment, no one moved. Derek blinked at the branch manager as if she'd mispronounced his name. Ethan shifted in his chair, eyes flicking from Camille to the papers on the desk. "Is there a problem?" Derek asked, his voice a shade too sharp. "We've already gone through everything. We're just waiting on her signature." Camille's smile didn't change, but something in the air did. "There might not be a problem at all," she said calmly, "but before Mrs. Collins signs anything connected to this file, I need to verify a few details with her, privately." Derek let out a short laugh that had no humor in it. "Privately? She's my wife. There's nothing you can't say in front of me." Camille turned to him fully. The friendly mask stayed, but her eyes were pure steel. "And she is also an individual client of this institution," she replied, voice smooth. "There are regulations about making sure borrowers understand what they are signing. I'm responsible for that in this branch." She looked at Anaya again. "Mrs. Collins?" Anaya felt like a spotlight had swung onto her. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her bag. Is something wrong?" she asked. Camille didn't answer that directly. "Would you step with me, please?" Derek moved first. He half stood, putting a hand on Anaya's shoulder as if to keep her seated. "We don't need drama today," he murmured into her ear, low so only she would hear. "Baby, it's routine. They're just flexing their authority. Sign and we go. I already told you, I've got it under control." That phrase again. She'd heard it so many times it had grooves in her brain. Camille watched the hand on Anaya's shoulder. For the first time, the manager's smile faded completely. "Mr. Collins," she said, and this time there was no warmth at all. "You're welcome to wait right here. I promise I will return your wife to you as soon as I'm done. Ethan, please stay with him." It wasn't a suggestion. Ethan straightened. "Of course, Miss Johnson." Derek's jaw worked. "This is ridiculous." "Derek?" Anaya said quietly, surprising herself. "It's okay. I'll be right back." His eyes snapped to hers. For a moment, she saw something raw in them. Fear, anger, desperation, all tangled together. Then he leaned back in his chair, hands raised. "Fine," he said. "Go ahead. Let them scare you with legal jargon. You'll see it's exactly what I said." Anaya stood up on legs that felt like they were made of cheap plastic. Camille gestured toward the glass office at the far wall. They walked side by side through the lobby. The world seemed to narrow to the click of Camille's low heels, the hum of fluorescent lights, the smell of cold air and printer toner. Customers shuffled past with deposit slips and coffee cups. Somewhere, a child laughed. It all felt far away, muffled, like she was underwater. Inside the office, Camille closed the glass door gently. The outside noise dulled to a low murmur. It was a small room but neat, with a long window facing the street, a framed diploma on the wall, a plant in the corner. No pictures of family, Anaya noticed. Just clean surfaces and the bank's logo. "Please," Camille said, gesturing to a chair. "Have a seat." Anaya sat. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She tried to tuck them under the edge of her bag so they wouldn't be so obvious. Camille walked around the desk and didn't sit immediately. She watched Anaya with a soft, assessing look, like a doctor studying an X-ray. "I know this is uncomfortable," Camille said at last. "I'm going to ask you some very direct questions. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. But I'm hoping you will, because what happens next depends on it. Is that all right?" But tightness in Anaya's chest sharpened. Did we do something wrong?" Camille sat down slowly, turning her monitor so it faced away from the window and a bit more toward Anaya. "Mrs. Collins," she said, "did you come here today knowing you were about to co-sign a commercial loan for your husband's business in the high six figures?" The words dropped between them like a brick. "Co-sign a what?" Anaya asked. "A joint commercial loan," Camille repeated, "with your personal guarantee, in the amount of $480,000. Her fingers tapped lightly on the keyboard. Numbers flashed on the screen. "And an attached agreement that names you as collateral for his existing line that is already delinquent." Anaya stared. The air in the office seemed to thin out. "I thought it was refinancing," she managed. "And maybe a little extra credit?" He said it was to get better rates." Camille's eyes softened for a moment. "Did anyone explain to you that if this loan goes bad, the bank has the legal right to pursue your personal income, your credit, any assets in your name, before his business assets?" Anaya swallowed. "No." "Did anyone explain that the paperwork out there includes a clause that allows the bank to place a lien on your apartment as primary collateral because your name is on the lease and his is not?" Her ears rang. "What are you talking about? This place is rented, not owned." Camille nodded. "But your rent history, your job, your credit score, they make you more solid on paper than his company right now. That's why this file is even still alive." She turned the screen slightly, just enough that Anaya could see her own name in harsh, sharp letters, over and over, followed by strings of numbers. "Mrs. Collins, I need you to answer this honestly," Camille said. "Have you signed loan or credit documents for him before without understanding them fully?" Anaya's throat tightened. Shame rose like bile. "There were Car papers, she whispered. Something with the truck he uses for work. A card. He said it had to be in my name because his business had too much going on already. I was just trying to help. Camille exhaled slowly, as if she'd expected that answer and still wished it were different. All right, she said, that matches what I've seen in your file. She clicked a few more times. The screen changed. Lines of text, dates, IP addresses, small flags in red. I want you to look at this, Camille said. She angled the monitor more fully toward Anaya. On the screen was something that looked like a digital form. At the bottom of it was a scribble. Anaya leaned forward, frowning. It was her name. It was also not her handwriting. That, Camille said quietly, is an electronic signature applied to a pre-approval addendum 3 months ago for your husband's commercial credit. It's supposed to be yours. Was this applied with your knowledge? Anaya's heart slammed against her ribs so hard she thought it might bruise them. No, she whispered. I've never seen that before. I've never been here for that. I was working nights 3 months ago. I remember because I missed my niece's birthday. Camille nodded once. Our system logs tell me this signature was applied from a device we have on file as your husband's. The location was a coffee shop near one of his project sites. No appointment, no call with you, nothing. She clicked again. Another screen, another scribble, more flags. There are 3 more like that, Camille said, each one authorizing increases, adjustments, or small transfers, all using their name, all without any record of you ever stepping into a branch or calling us. The room tilted. Anaya clutched her bag like a life jacket. Her brain tried to make excuses on its own, out of habit. Maybe the system messed up. Maybe he thought it was allowed. Maybe I'm overreacting, she said weakly. Maybe this is something people do. Married people. Camille's face stayed calm, but her voice got firmer. Married people share responsibility sometimes, she said. They make decisions together. What I'm seeing here is not a shared decision. It's one person using another person's identity to prop up a failing business. Failing. The word landed like a slap. What do you mean failing? Anaya asked. Camille pulled up another document. She didn't turn it fully this time, but she didn't hide it either. His company's main account has been overdrawn for weeks, she said. There are returned checks, unpaid suppliers, payroll delays. He's already maxed the previous line. This new loan is structured in a way that, if approved with your guarantee, would keep his company technically afloat. She met Anaya's eyes by tying a boulder to your ankle. Anaya's breath came in shallow bursts now. He said the bank was making it hard on him, that you all were dragging your feet, that you didn't want to help a black-owned business. A flicker crossed Camille's face at that. Not annoyance, something like weariness. I take that accusation very seriously, she said, which is why I started looking more closely at his file, at his communications with our staff, at who was really being left out of the conversation. She tapped the screen again. An internal note popped up, visible for a second. Wife will sign if she's put on the spot, Camille read aloud. Get her in the office. Don't give her too much to read. Husband says she gets emotional. The words were like ice water down Anaya's spine. She heard Derek's voice in her head, laughing with friends. Ani overthinks everything. Just put it in front of her, and she'll sign to get you off her back. Her hands curled into fists. Mrs. Collins, Camille said softly, cutting into the spiral. I'm not your lawyer. I'm not here to tell you how to feel about your marriage. But I am here, in my capacity, to tell you that if you sign what's on that desk out there today, the person taking the legal risk is not your husband. It's you. She picked up a printed copy from a side tray and slid it across the desk. In Section 4, Camille continued, tapping a paragraph, you agree that if his business defaults on this loan, or fails to meet certain ratios we already know it cannot meet, The bank may pursue any and all remedies against you as guarantor. Your wages, your credit, any property you own now or in the future. Anaya's vision blurred again. She blinked hard. My wages? She repeated. You mean my paycheck? From the clinic? Yes, Camille said. Garnished. For years, potentially. Your ability to rent another place if this one becomes too expensive. Your ability to buy a car or get a mortgage someday. If regulators get involved and decide this arrangement looks like a sham to hide his risk in your name. You could also be pulled into an investigation as a participant. The clock on the wall ticked. Each click felt like a nail. I didn't know, Anaya said. Her voice cracked. I didn't know he'd done any of that. I thought he was just bad with taking care of mail and paying on time. I thought he was stressed. I was trying to help. Camille leaned forward slightly, resting her forearms on the desk. The manager's voice softened, but the words stayed sharp. That's what financial abusers count on, she said. You trying to help, you trusting, you signing where they point because it's faster than arguing. And then one day you wake up and you're the one the bank, the IRS, the collection agencies are chasing. Anaya looked down at the printed page. Her name stared back at her from the header in neat, unforgiving type. She remembered every time Derek had snatched a letter out of her hand with a joke. Every time he'd told her she was too tired to read all that anyway. Every time he'd called himself the provider, even while she was dragging herself home from back-to-back shifts. The puzzle pieces she'd refused to assemble were suddenly snapping into place, one by one, fast and vicious. What are you saying? She whispered. That he's what? Trying to ruin me? Camille held her gaze. I'm saying, she replied quietly, that every number on this screen tells me he is trying to move his sinking ship onto your back and walk away when it goes under. And if you sign those few papers like he asked, you'll be handing him the life raft and volunteering to drown in his place. The room went very, very still. Outside the glass, Derek's silhouette was visible across the lobby, gesturing as he talked to Ethan, checking his watch, glancing toward the office like a man who thought the world still revolved around his schedule. Inside, Anaya felt something cold and clear settle in her chest. She'd walked in wet and tired, thinking she was here to help her husband with his dreams. Instead, she was sitting in front of the woman whose job it was to tell her, without spinning or sugarcoating, that her signature was the last brick he needed to seal her into his debt. And if I don't sign? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Camille's answer was instant. Then he has a problem, she said, and you still have choices. For a long moment, the only sound in the office was the clock on the wall and the muffled hum of the lobby outside. Anaya stared at the paper in front of her, at her own name repeated like a curse. $480,000. Personal guarantee. Collateral. Garnishment. Words that weren't just ink, they were a future. A future where every shift she worked, every chart she signed, every hour of sleep she lost, taking care of someone else's sick child, would belong to a debt she never chose. Her palm was damp around the strap of her bag. A part of her brain, the part trained by years of smoothing over Derek's moods, tried one last time to make this smaller. He'll say you're exaggerating, she whispered. He'll say it's how business works, that you all are overreacting because he doesn't fit your checklist. Camille listened, not interrupting. Then she leaned in slightly. Collins, she said gently, I've worked in this branch for 11 years. I've seen people take big risks, sign complicated packages, even do some creative accounting. That's not what this is. This is a pattern of someone using your trust as a tool. Anaya lifted her gaze. When my team flags a file like this, Camille continued, we don't just look at numbers. We look at behavior. Who calls? Who gets left off emails? Who shows up only to sign and then disappears? Her eyes didn't soften this time. You have never called this branch, she said. Not once. Not about a loan, not about a card, not about a question. But your name is on everything. His voice is on all the calls. He tells us you're too busy or not good with this stuff. Do you recognize that version of yourself? Heat rose in Anaya's face. No, she didn't. She was the one other nurses went to when the system glitched. She was the one her family called when they had to fill out insurance forms. She was not stupid. She had never been stupid. She had just been tired and trusted the wrong person too much. Camille watched the shift in her eyes. When she spoke next, her voice held a different undertone. Not just concern, but strategy. Here's the situation, she said. If you walk out there, refuse to sign, and leave the building, you keep yourself off this specific loan. That's good for you in the short term. But he will know you backed out. He will know we spoke. He may take whatever he's trying to do to another bank, or worse, try to use your identity somewhere you can't see. The thought made Anaya's stomach drop. Another bank. Another forged click on a screen. Another manager who didn't know to question it. And I'm guessing, Camille added softly, that if he's willing to do this much behind your back financially, your home life after you refuse won't be peaceful. Images flashed. Derek's jaw clenched, his voice raised. His favorite words, ungrateful, dramatic, crazy, the way he punched walls instead of people. So far. So what do I do? Anaya asked, hating the tremor in her voice. Stay married to a man who tried to put me in $500,000 of debt? Walk out and let him keep playing with my name somewhere else? There's no good option. There is a third option, Camille said. She reached into a drawer, took out a small, plain notebook, and clicked a pen. You help me make this bigger than a marital argument, she said. You help me turn this from he said, she said into a case, with evidence, with a paper trail, with recordings. Something that doesn't depend on anyone believing you over him. Anaya blinked. Evidence? Camille nodded. Right now, what I have are internal flags and suspicious patterns. Enough to make me uncomfortable. Enough to put a hold on this file. But not enough to move it straight to fraud and legal and keep it there without a fight. She wrote a number at the top of the notebook page, Anaya's account ending digits, and circled it. If you're willing, she continued, you can go back out there and do what you were going to do anyway. Sit at that desk with your husband and listen. Ask the questions you wanted to ask. Let him talk freely because he thinks you're still on his side. And then what? Anaya asked slowly. Camille's eyes flicked to Anaya's bag. You have your phone with you? Yes. Does it have a voice recorder? Anaya nodded. You can turn it on, Camille said. Right now, before you leave this room, put it in your bag on your lap. Don't take it out, don't announce it. Just let it do what it does. Anaya hesitated. Is that allowed? Your state has one-party consent laws, Camille said calmly. I checked before I walked over to your table. As long as you are part of the conversation, you may record it. You don't have to tell him. Later, if this goes where I think it might go, that recording combined with our data will tell a story no one can ignore. Anaya looked down at her bag. The idea made her heart race. It felt sneaky, dishonest. And yet, she realized with a bitter taste in her mouth, not more dishonest than forging your wife's signature in a coffee shop. That's just one piece, Camille said. The rest I can handle from my side. While you're sitting with him, the system is already logging every click, every attempt to push this loan through. My compliance officer is watching now. We're capturing the timeline. She tapped another button. A red banner appeared on her screen, a note in the file. I've also flagged this session, Camille said, which means that no matter what they say out there, no final approval can go through without my sign-off and a second review at regional. So even if I sign, Anaya said slowly, it's not final? Not if I don't let it be, Camille said. And I won't. Not until someone higher up has seen what I've seen. She leaned back slightly, the chair creaking. I need you to understand something, she added. I am not asking you to sign anything you don't want to sign. In fact, I'm going to ask you not to sign today at all. Your job, if you agree, is to stall. To let him show us himself. in his own words. Anaya's brow creased. Stall how? Camille smiled, but this time there was a hint of something like mischief in it. By being exactly what he thinks you are, she said. Emotional, confused, overwhelmed, needing more time. She picked up the printed packet she'd slid across earlier and flipped to the last page. He expects you to fold when he gets impatient, Camille said. Use that. Let him raise his voice. Let him interrupt you. Let him say the quiet part out loud. My cameras see that. My system records that. And if he crosses a line physically, my security team is 2 steps away. A pulse of fear flickered through Anaya. Physical. Camille's gaze sharpened. If at any point you feel unsafe, she said, you say one specific sentence and nothing else. Look at me. Anaya met her eyes. You say, Camille continued slowly, I think I need to use the restroom first. Then you stand up and walk straight back here. If he gets in your way, raises his voice, touches you, that gives me more than enough cause to shut the whole session down and call our head of security immediately. The phrase lodged in Anaya's mind like a password. I think I need to use the restroom first, she repeated under her breath. Exactly, Camille said. In the meantime, you let him talk about why he needs you. Let him tell you he already used your name a little bit. Let him explain how this will all pay off. And you're overreacting. You don't have to trap him. You just have to let him be himself in a room full of microphones. Anaya drew in a slow breath. The plan sounded terrifying. It also sounded clean, precise, like a medical procedure where someone finally explained why the incision had to be made. What happens after? She asked. If he reveals enough today, Camille said, I escalate this file to our fraud investigations unit. I make sure our legal department knows you did not willingly consent to being used as collateral on prior moves. That gives you leverage later if you choose to pursue charges or divorce. The word hung between them. Divorce. It wasn't the first time it had floated through her mind in the dark, but it had never sounded as solid, as possible, as it did in this bright, clinical office with the bank logo on the wall and her life printed in numbers on a screen. And if I don't help you? Anaya asked. If I walk out? Pretend none of this happened? Camille didn't guilt her. She just nodded. Then you walk out, she said. And tonight, when he comes home angry, you know what he tried to make you sign. You can still talk to a lawyer. You can still put alerts on your credit. I will still have my internal flags. It will be harder, but not impossible. She folded her hands on the desk. But you are here now, she said quietly. The file is open. He thinks you are about to give him what he wants most, your clean name, your steady income, your future. If there was ever a moment to see who he really is with witnesses, this is it. Anaya let her back sink into the chair. The leather was cool against her shoulders. She thought of the night shifts, the call lights, the way Derek liked to say he paid the big bills, when his biggest contribution lately had been ordering takeout on a credit card with her name embossed on it. She thought of her younger self, 26 and starry-eyed, signing their first joint account forms, believing the word joint meant together, not you pay, I play. Her hands didn't shake as much now. If I do this, she said slowly, will you be there, in the room? Not at first, Camille said. If I walk in too soon, he'll shut down. He'll sense something is wrong. But when the time is right, when I feel we have enough, and especially if he tries to pressure you, I will come in, and I won't be alone. There was a quiet power in the way she said it that made Anaya's heartbeat settle just a little. Okay, Anaya whispered. What do I do first? Camille smiled, not with triumph, but with something like respect. First, she said, you turn on your recorder. She slid a small sticky note across the table and wrote 3 words on it in neat handwriting. Voice memos, read. Open your phone, find your voice notes, press the red button, and put it back in your bag. She instructed. Don't check it. Don't fuss with it. Forget it's there. Your job is not the phone. Your job is your face, your tears, if they come, your questions. Anaya reached into her bag. Her fingers didn't feel like her own for a moment as she unlocked the screen, found the app she barely used, and saw the empty list. No recordings. She pressed the red circle. 00, 01, 02. The numbers started counting up. She locked the screen and let the phone sink back into the dark of her purse. The steady weight of it against her hip felt different now. Not just a device, but a witness. Second, Camille said, you let me walk you back to the desk. I'll reintroduce myself as just checking in on a complex file. I'll give you a look when the system is properly logging what I need. You'll know it when you see it. What kind of look? Anaya asked, a small, almost hysterical laugh bubbling up. Camille's lips curved. The kind your favorite aunt gives you across the table at Thanksgiving when she knows you're about to ask the question everyone else is avoiding. The image was so specific, so human, that Anaya's laugh escaped, shaky but real. And third, she asked. Third, Camille said, standing and smoothing her blazer, you remember that you are not the one who should be ashamed in this building today. She moved to the door, her hand resting lightly on the handle. Whatever he says out there, she added, whatever story he spins, I want you to hold one fact in your mind. You did not do this to him. He did this to you. All you're doing now is letting the light in. Anaya stood slowly. The rain had left faint dark spots on the hem of her jeans. She hadn't even felt them until now. She took a deep breath. Her ribs still felt tight, but there was a little more room in her lungs. Okay, she said. Let's go. Let the light in. Camille opened the office door. The lobby sound rushed back in. Printers, murmurs, the ding of the entrance sensor. Across the room, Derek looked up immediately. His eyes found her with laser focus, his mouth already forming words she could almost hear. There you are. What took so long? Anaya stepped out of the office, the branch manager at her side, her phone quietly recording in the dark of her bag. See, she walked back toward the desk, heart pounding, face arranged in the familiar mask of the emotional, overthinking wife he thought he knew. Inside, something colder and sharper had taken shape. If he wanted her signature so badly, he was about to work very, very hard for a pen that never touched the line. Derek's smile was already loading when Anaya sat back down. There you are, he said, voice a notch too bright. I was about to send a search party. Everything good? Ethan, the loan officer, glanced past her, eyes flicking briefly to Camille. He sat up straighter in his chair, hands folding over the keyboard. Anaya slid into her seat. Her bag rested on her lap, heavy and warm. Somewhere inside, the little red numbers on her phone screen kept climbing. I just needed a minute, she said, letting her voice wobble. It's a lot. Derek rolled his eyes. A lot of what? It's literally what we talked about. Camille, with all due respect, if there's an issue, just tell us. I'm not trying to camp out here all day. Camille gave him a calm, neutral smile. I understand, Mr. Collins. This is a complex file, and I wanted to make sure Mrs. Collins had a chance to hear some things directly from me. That's all. Anaya caught the subtle emphasis on directly. Derek huffed. I already explained it to her. We're just wasting time. Even so, Camille said, I appreciate your patience. She moved behind the small desk, standing just to the side of Ethan's monitor instead of sitting. To anyone else, it might look like a manager just overseeing a transaction. To Anaya, it felt like having a guard at her back. Now, Camille continued smoothly, Ethan, let's just pick up where you left off. Summarize for Mrs. Collins what she's about to sign. Ethan's Adam's apple bobbed. Of course, he said, forcing a smile. So, as we discussed, Mrs. Collins, this is a consolidated commercial facility. It rolls your husband's existing line and credit obligations into a new structure with more flexibility. You're listed as guarantor because your employment and credit profile strengthen the file. That helps us offer more favorable terms, which is good for both of you. Anaya let her eyebrows knit. Strengthen how? He clicked, bringing up a screen with charts and numbers. Well, he said, you have stable employment, 5 years at the same clinic, good income, no late payments, no delinquencies. The system actually ranks you as the primary. He cut himself off too late. Primary what? Anaya asked quietly. Primary risk holder. Camille supplied, her tone clinical. Our system uses that to determine who is most likely to make good on a debt if things go wrong. Right now, that's you, Mrs. Collins, not your husband. Derek's jaw flexed. That's not what matters, he said quickly. What matters is the rate, babe. We've talked about this. Don't let them scare you with technical terms. Ethan, just show her where to sign. Ethan's discomfort deepened. Well, we do have the guarantee page ready, he said, pulling a single sheet from the stack and placing it on a small signature pad between them. Mrs. Collins, if you just sign here, we can. Anaya stared at the blinking cursor on the pad. Then she looked at Derek. You said, she began slowly, that this was just refinancing, that this was to help us qualify and get better rates. You didn't say anything about me being the primary risk holder. He let out a breath through his nose, half laugh, half sigh. Ani, that's just banker talk. They always make it sound scary. It's paperwork. You know I'd never let anything happen to you. Like you didn't let anything happen with the truck, she heard herself say. The words slipped out before she could swallow them. Or the store card? Or that other thing with the automatic payments I only found out about when my account was short? Derek's eyes flashed. For a second, the charming husband mask slipped. That stuff was taken care of, he snapped. I told you it's all part of running a business. You can't keep clinging to every little hiccup from the past. I'm building something here. For us. He reached for the pen, picked it up, and pressed it into her hand. You asked me to be a provider, he said, dropping his voice. This is what that looks like. Big numbers, big moves. You think these other guys out here are making it without their wives backing them up? Come on, don't embarrass me in front of my banker. Anaya felt every word, not just in her ears, but in her body. The way he said embarrass me, like it was a crime. The way his fingers closed over hers on the pen, firm, familiar, a little too tight. She let her shoulders hunch slightly, as if crushed by the weight of all this talk of big moves. She let her eyes glisten. Not hard to do. The tears were right there, just waiting. She let her voice crack. I don't want to sign something that puts everything in my name if your company is already. Already what? He demanded. Say it. In trouble, she whispered. His laugh came out sharp. Where'd you hear that? In there? He jerked his head toward Camille's office. They love to act like any small business struggling for a month is in trouble. We're in a growth phase, Annie. Growth is messy. He turned to Camille, anger flaring. You know what? This feels like harassment now. I've been jumping through hoops with you people for weeks. I bring my wife in like you asked, and suddenly you're pulling her aside, filling her head with worst-case scenarios. You want to help us or not? Camille remained perfectly calm. My job, she replied, is not to help you. My job is to protect the bank and make sure our clients understand their obligations. All of them. She shifted her gaze onto Anaya. And that includes you, Mrs. Collins. The subtle look passed between them, the one Camille had promised. The favorite aunt at Thanksgiving look. A tiny raising of the eyebrows, a brief softening around the eyes that said, there it is, he's showing us. Anaya took a breath. She let it stutter a little. You said before, she began hesitantly, that my name was already on some things. On, addendums, increases. Derek stiffened. Why are we bringing that up now? He demanded. Those were minor adjustments. You're really going to nitpick me for doing what needed to be done to keep the lights on? Did I sign those? She asked. With you? Here? His nostrils flared. You're seriously going to do this in front of strangers? Yes, Camille said, folding her hands. She is, and so are you, Mr. Collins. Because what's happening at this desk right now is being recorded by our system. As part of your loan file, I suggest you answer her question clearly. A beat of silence fell over the little group. Ethan kept his eyes on the screen, pretending to scroll, but his ears were red. Derek looked from Camille to Anaya and back. He pasted on a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Babe," he said slowly, "we've signed a lot of things over the years. Sometimes at the branch, sometimes at home. Sometimes I bring stuff to you to sign after work. You don't remember every little form. It's not a big deal. I told you what they were. You trusted me. That's how marriage works." "Did I see the screen?" Anaya pressed softly. "Did I read the words? Or did you just tell me where to click?" His patience snapped audibly. "Oh my God, Ani," he burst out. "You're really going to act brand new. You knew I was handling the business side." "I didn't think we needed to have a congressional hearing every time I forwarded you a DocuSign. You want me to build a company, but you don't want to touch the risk? That's not how this works." "And yet the system logs," Camille cut in evenly, "show her signature being applied from your devices, Mr. Collins, not hers." He swung on her. "You're taking her side because she's—" He caught himself. His mouth snapped shut. "Because she's what?" Camille asked quietly. His jaw worked. "Because she's a woman, obviously. Y'all have decided I'm the villain here, and now you're ganging up. This is why black men don't get ahead. Every time we try to move up, some gatekeeper tells us we're dangerous." Camille's expression didn't change, but her eyes hardened. "The algorithm flagged your account," she said. "Not your skin. The overdrafts did. The forged digital consents did. The fact that as of this morning, vendors have filed 3 separate disputes for non-payment, and payroll for your last project bounced. If you want everything to be about race, we can certainly have that conversation with our regional director. But don't confuse scrutiny of your behavior with an attack on your identity." The words hung between them like drawn swords. Anaya watched Derek's face. He was good with words. Usually he could twist any critique into an insult, then into a grievance that made him the victim. She'd seen him do it with landlords, with his mother, with old friends. This time, something else crept in, beneath the bluster, an edge of panic. He turned back to her, dropping his voice. "Look at me," he said. "Look at me, Ani. You know me. You know I wouldn't put you in something I didn't plan to pay off. I'm just juggling. That's all this is. Juggling until the big contract hits. You're my wife. You're supposed to be in this with me, not questioning me like some stranger." Her heart twisted. Not because his words were true, but because of how much her younger self had believed them once. Anaya let the tears she'd been holding back finally spill. She didn't have to fake them. "Then why?" she asked softly. "Did the manager just show me 4 different signatures with my name that I never gave? Why did she show me notes where you told people I get emotional, so they should rush me to sign before I asked too many questions?" Derek's face went still. For the first time, he seemed to realize that whatever conversation had happened in that glass office had not gone his way. He shot Camille a murderous look. "You had no right." "I had every right," she said, "and every obligation." Her gaze shifted to Ethan. "Ethan, please mark this conversation as escalated." Ethan clicked something fast. His hands were shaking. Derek's foot tapped under the table. His fingers drummed the laminate. "Enough," he snapped. "I'm not sitting here being interrogated in front of my wife. Ani, give me the pen. We're signing and getting out. These people don't want us here? Fine. We'll take our business where it's appreciated." He reached for her hand. Anaya flinched back. "I'm not signing," she said. Her voice came out clearer than she expected. "Not today." Derek froze. "What did you just say?" "I said I'm not signing," she repeated, letting the words plant themselves firmly in the air. "I need time to think, to use the restroom, to call my mother, to talk to someone who isn't invested in this going through." Camille's eyes flashed with quick approval. Derek's face darkened, the color rising up his neck. "You need time?" he echoed. "You've had time. I've been talking about this for weeks. You're just scared, as usual." You want everything safe and small, and then you'll whine when I can't give you the life you say you want. He leaned in, lowering his voice to a hiss. Let me spell it out since you suddenly care about the fine print, he said. If you walk out of here without signing, there is no later. This deal dies. The company dies. I lose everything I've been building, and so do you. You want to go back to living paycheck to paycheck in some rundown shoebox. We are already living paycheck to paycheck, Anaya said quietly. The only difference is I thought it was because life was hard. Not because you were dragging a $500,000 anchor behind my back. His eyes blazed. For a second, his hand lifted as if to slam the desk. He caught himself, fingers curling into a fist instead. The shift in his body didn't go unnoticed. Camille's voice came, cool and crisp. Mr. Collins, she said, I'm going to ask you to keep your hands away from the client and the furniture, and to lower your voice. This is a bank, not your living room. He swung on her again. You don't get to tell me how to talk to my wife. I do when you're talking to her in my branch, she cut in. Ethan, please excuse yourself and ask Mr. Ramirez to join us. Ethan practically leaped out of his chair. Yes, Miss Johnson. He vanished toward the back hallway. Derek laughed, high and ugly. Oh, so we're calling backup now? You gonna have security drag me out for asking my own wife to sign what she already agreed to? I didn't agree, Anaya said. I didn't know. Those are not the same thing. He turned on her again, anger and disbelief and something like fear warring in his face. You're really doing this, he said. You're really choosing them over me? If you means the man who forged my name, Anaya said, her voice starting to tremble for real now, then yes, I am. He opened his mouth, but Camille's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then at the entrance. A tall man in a dark suit was approaching. ID badge clipped to his belt. Carlos Ramirez, security supervisor. His expression was neutral, but his eyes were very alert. Everything okay here, Miss Johnson? He asked. For now, she said. Mr. Ramirez, this is Mr. and Mrs. Collins. We're in the middle of reviewing a complex file. I wanted you nearby in case we need assistance. Derek scoffed. Assistance? You think I'm gonna rob the place? Is that it? Big scary black man asking for a loan, right? Carlos didn't rise to the bait. He simply folded his hands. I'm here to make sure everyone leaves safe and calm, he said. Including you, sir. The tension stretched thin as glass. Anaya's heart hammered. The recorder in her bag silently captured every word. The threats, the manipulation, the race-baiting, the subtle intimidation. She could feel how badly Derek wanted her to cave. Not just for the money, for the control, for the satisfaction of proving that even with a manager and a security supervisor standing there, her signature still belonged to him. She let herself sway slightly, hand reaching for the edge of the desk. The world blurred at the edges for a moment, some of it acting, some of it real. I think, Camille's voice came in like a cue. Mrs. Collins, she asked, do you need a moment? Anaya nodded, swallowing hard. I think I need to use the restroom first. The password. Camille straightened. Of course, she said. Mr. Ramirez, would you please escort Mrs. Collins toward the facilities? I'll stay here with Mr. Collins. Derek bristled. She doesn't need an escort. She's not a prisoner. No, Camille said mildly. She's a client. And it's standard practice when a session has been escalated. We like to make sure everyone feels safe. The word hung there, pointed. Safe. Anaya seized it like a lifeline. She stood slowly, tucking her bag more firmly against her side. Derek leaned forward. Ani, he said in a low, dangerous tone, if you walk away from this table. I'm not walking away, she said. I'm going to the bathroom. Their eyes locked. For a heartbeat, it was just the two of them, all witnesses fading. Every fight they'd ever had, Every apology, every promise hung in that look. Then Carlos stepped to her side, a quiet, solid presence. "This way, ma'am," he said. Anaya turned. As she walked away from the desk, past the other customers and the potted plants and the posters promising dream big, she felt something shift inside her. For years, she had let Derek drag her into conversations and deals and arguments she didn't understand. Always trusting he knew what he was doing. Today, in this bright, cold bank, she finally understood something else. He knew exactly what he was doing. And for the first time, she had witnesses. She didn't go all the way to the restroom. At the hallway corner, Camille's voice reached them. "Actually, Mr. Ramirez," she called smoothly, "there's been a change. Could you and Mrs. Collins join me in conference room B instead? Legal and compliance would like to be present for the rest of this discussion." Legal, compliance. The words rolled through Anaya like distant thunder. Carlos glanced at her. "This way, ma'am." He led her down a different hallway, away from Derek's line of sight. Behind them, she heard Camille's chair scrape back, her voice low on the phone, summoning people Anaya had never met but suddenly felt intensely grateful for. By the time she stepped into conference room B, bigger table, closed door, a speakerphone blinking on the wall, Anaya realized something. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about a man who had turned his wife into a walking credit line, and a bank manager who had decided, on an ordinary Thursday morning in the rain, that she wasn't going to let that happen quietly. The conference room felt different from the rest of the bank. Quieter, colder. No cute posters, no bowls of free pens. Just a long table, a muted screen on the wall, and a little black speakerphone in the center, blinking like a single, watching eye. Carlos held the door for her. "Have a seat, ma'am," he said. Anaya sat at the end of the table, bag still on her lap, phone still recording. Her heart was pounding, but in a different way now. Not wild panic, but the thud of somebody bracing for impact. Camille came in a moment later with a slim, black woman in a gray blazer and a tablet under her arm. "Mrs. Collins," Camille said, shutting the door gently. "This is Ms. Patel, our compliance officer. Legal is on the line." The speakerphone chimed. A calm male voice came through, slightly tinny. "This is David from Regional Legal," he said. "Mrs. Collins, can you hear me clearly?" "Yes," Anaya said. Her own voice sounded strange to her. Small, but steady. "Good," he said. "Before we start, Miss Johnson, can you summarize why you escalated the Collins file?" Camille took a seat across from Anaya, turning her monitor so it faced inward. Her tone shifted. It was no longer branch manager gentle. It was precise, clipped, the way doctors talked when they were dictating charts. "Loan application ending in 739, she said. "Existing commercial relationship with Mr. Derek Collins. Pattern of rising delinquencies, returned items. And informal reassurances with no corresponding cash flow. During pre-closing today, system flagged prior electronic consents under Mrs. Collins's name, applied from devices on record as Mr. Collins's, without documented interaction with Mrs. Collins." Ms. Patel tapped something on her tablet, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "Additionally," Camille went on, "internal notes from previous interactions show Mr. Collins directing staff to keep it simple for his wife and not drag her through the boring details, combined with comments that she gets emotional and will sign if you put it in front of her. Mrs. Collins independently confirmed in my office that she was unaware of being primary guarantor and did not recall authorizing prior e-signatures." There was a short silence on the line. "Understood," David said at last. His voice had lost all friendliness. "Collins, I'm going to ask you a few questions directly, if that's all right." "Okay," she said. "First," he said, "did anyone at this bank ever sit you down before today to explain that you were being added as a guarantor on Mr. Collins's business debts?" "No," Anaya said. "I thought I was just helping with refinancing. He always told me it was routine. That the bank was making things hard for him, and I was just smoothing it." Did you ever log into a DocuSign or similar system to click I agree on any business credit forms for him? She thought back. Screens, emails, late nights. Derek hovering in the kitchen with his laptop. He's put his laptop in front of me before, she admitted. Just the signature box, never the whole thing. Sometimes I signed, sometimes I refused until he explained more. But what she showed me, she nodded toward Camille, those signatures, those dates, I was at work those nights. I didn't click those. Miss Patel looked up sharply. Do you consent to us pulling IP logs and device IDs related to those signatures and comparing them to the devices on your customer file? Yes, Anaya said. Please. Noted, Miss Patel murmured, scribbling. Last question for now, David said. Right now, are you feeling pressured by anyone to sign this new loan against your better judgment? Anaya thought of Derek's fingers crushing the pen into her hand. Don't embarrass me. You're my wife. You're supposed to be in this with me. Yes, she said, by my husband. The word husband tasted different in her mouth now, less like endearment, more like label on a file. Thank you, David said. Miss Johnson, based on what you've told us, I'm instructing you to immediately place an internal freeze on the Collins application. No disbursement, no further processing, until fraud and legal complete a review. Document this as potential identity misuse and undue spousal pressure. We will also be filing the appropriate regulatory report. Already done, Camille said, clicking something. A red banner popped up on her screen. Hold, escalated to fraud legal. And Mrs. Collins, David added, I'm going to give you some advice that isn't legal representation but is practical. After you leave here today, I strongly recommend you 1. Pull your credit reports from all 3 bureaus. 2. Put a fraud alert, or even a freeze, on your file. 3. Consult an attorney of your own choice about what you've learned. I don't have money for a lawyer like that, Anaya said, the old shame trying to push back in. In a moment, Miss Patel cut in. We'll give you a list of legal aid and domestic violence resources. Financial abuse falls under that umbrella. Many of them charge nothing or very little. You are not alone in this. Those words landed somewhere deep. Not alone. Camille turned the monitor back toward herself and took a breath. Now, the immediate question, she said. How do you want to handle walking out there? Anaya blinked. What do you mean? We can do this a few ways. Camille said, I can go back and inform Mr. Collins that, after review, the bank is not able to proceed and that any further questions can be directed to legal. Security will be present. If you like, we can escort you out a side exit, so you don't have to see him again today. The thought of not having to sit back at that tiny desk under his glare made Anaya feel lightheaded with relief. But another feeling nudged at her, unexpected and sharp. Will he know, she asked quietly, that I said no? Camille met her eyes. He will know the bank declined to proceed, she said carefully. What you tell him beyond that is your decision. But the reality is, he's going to be angry either way. The difference is whether you want witnesses for that anger. That did it. I want witnesses, Anaya said. Then, Miss Patel said, closing her tablet, we keep it here. They didn't make her walk back to the little desk. Instead, 10 minutes later, Derek walked into conference room B. He came in hot. What is this? He demanded, before the door had even snicked shut. Why am I being dragged into some back room like a suspect? Carlos stood by the door, hands folded. Camille sat at the table. Miss Patel occupied a chair with her tablet open, and the little black speakerphone still blinked. Please sit, Mr. Collins, Camille said. He remained standing, eyes bouncing around the room. They snagged on Anaya and narrowed. What did you tell them? He hissed. You running your mouth about our business now? I told them the truth, Anaya said quietly. He laughed, sharp and ugly. Your truth is whatever you feel in the moment, Ani. We're not doing this. Sit down, Mr. Collins, Carlos repeated, this time with steel in his voice. Something in Derek, recognized the tone. The part of him that had been stopped by cops before, that knew what it meant when a man with security supervisor on his badge stopped sounding polite. He dropped into a chair with theatrical resentment. David's voice came through the speaker. "Mr. Collins," he said pleasantly, "this is David from Regional Legal. You're on speaker. I want to make sure you're aware this session is being recorded for our internal records." Derek glanced at the device. "You gotta be kidding me." "We have concerns," David continued, "about the validity of prior consents on this account and the suitability of this new facility given your business performance. Effective immediately, we are placing a freeze on further lending pending investigation." "In English," Derek snapped. Miss Patel said coolly, "You are not getting this loan. Not today. And not in this form. Possibly not at all." The words hit him harder than any lecture. His face went slack. You can't do that," he said. "I've been working this for weeks. I got vendors waiting, crews depending on—" "What you have," Camille said, "is a line of credit that you've repeatedly pushed to its limits. Vendors you haven't paid, and a wife whose identity you've used without clear consent. That is not leverage, Mr. Collins. That is liability." Anaya watched something change in his eyes. The charm flickered out. The performance dropped. "So this is it," he said, slowly, looking at her. "You just cut my throat in here and call it protecting yourself. You know what happens if this deal dies? I go under. You go under with me." "Not anymore," Anaya said. Her voice surprised everyone, even herself. It came out low and even, no wobble. "I didn't tell you to lie on forms," she continued. "I didn't tell you to forge my name. I didn't tell you to bounce payroll while you were buying new rims. You built this. You can't hand it to me now and call it our problem." His jaw clenched. "You really think they're on your side?" he spat. "These people, the bank, they're not your friends. You're just a number to them." "Maybe," she said, "but today my number saved me. Not yours." Silence. The words settled into the room like dust. On the speaker, David cleared his throat. "Mr. Collins," he said, "for your awareness, our fraud team will be in touch. In the meantime, I strongly advise you not to attempt to apply for further credit using your wife's information, here or elsewhere. That would be unwise." Derek shoved his chair back, standing abruptly. "I don't have to sit here and be threatened," he said. "We're done." "Yes," Camille said calmly, "ye are." She nodded once to Carlos. "Mr. Ramirez will escort you out," she said. "Mrs. Smith, Collins will be leaving via a different exit shortly." Derek stared at Anaya, something dark and broken moving behind his eyes. "This isn't over," he said softly. "You think you won because some lady in a blazer held your hand? Wait till you need me to cover rent when your little clinic job doesn't stretch." Anaya felt the usual sting of his words, the reflexive urge to defend, to explain, to soothe. It didn't rise all the way this time. "I already cover the rent," she said. "That's what you never understood." Carlos stepped between them. "Time to go, sir." Derek hesitated, like he might try to push past. Then he saw the other guard waiting quietly in the hallway, and something in him deflated. He left. The door closed behind him with a soft, final click. For a long second, nobody moved. Then Anaya realized she'd been holding her breath. She let it out in one long, shuddering stream. Camille stood and came around the table. "Mrs. Collins," she said quietly, "I'm going to print some things for you. Contact numbers for legal aid, credit bureaus, and a written statement confirming that we are reviewing prior signatures for potential fraud. If any other institution asks why this loan fell through, you show them that." "Thank you," Anaya whispered. Her throat burned. "For all of this." "I know you didn't have to." Camille shook her head. "Actually, I did," she said. "That's what my job is supposed to be. We just don't always get to catch it this early." She hesitated, then added, "And this may not help now, but My own mother signed some things she didn't understand once. It wrecked her credit for a decade. So when I saw your file, she exhaled, a small, tired laugh. Let's just say I take this personally. Something in Anaya unclenched. Not all the way, but enough. 2 hours later, she walked out a side entrance with a slim folder in her hand. Inside were 3 pamphlets, 2 business cards, 1 printed statement with the bank's logo saying, "Customer disputes prior authorization, account under investigation," and a small handwritten note from Camille clipped to the back. "You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. Please don't forget that." Outside, the rain had finally stopped. The air smelled like wet pavement and exhaust and the fry oil from the fast food place across the street. For the first time in a long time, Anaya looked at the sky and didn't feel like it was closing in on her. The weeks that followed were not easy. She spent late nights on hold with credit bureaus, placing alerts and freezes. She sat in a cramped office at a legal aid clinic while a tired but kind attorney with locks pulled into a bun explained words like identity theft, unauthorized credit, and marital debt versus individual liability. She moved in with her cousin for a while, then into a small 1-bedroom on the bus line. Not the dream apartment she'd imagined one day, but it was hers. And her name was on the lease for the right reasons. The bank's fraud unit did its work in the background. They pulled IP logs and digital trails. They matched e-signatures to Derek's devices, not hers. They unearthed other adjustments he'd made at another branch, tried to push through at a credit union, attempted online with a store card. Camille called her once, just to update. "We've classified several of the prior authorizations as fraudulent," she said. "We're removing them from your responsibility and reporting the misuse. It won't erase everything, but it will help. And we've terminated his business relationship with us." Later, a detective from the Financial Crimes Unit called too. Then a representative from the DA's office. Derek eventually learned what it meant when a bank filed certain kinds of reports. When vendors cooperated, when an angry ex-employee turned over text messages about getting your wife to sign, she don't read anyway. He didn't end up in a long-term care facility like Tariq, but he did end up standing in court one afternoon in a wrinkled suit, listening as a judge read out words like fraudulent use of an identifying instrument and aggravated identity theft. Anaya went to one hearing. She didn't have to. The prosecutor told her she could stay home and they'd email updates. But she wanted to see his face when the story he'd been writing with her name finally read him back as the villain. He saw her as they brought him in. For a second, something almost like the old Derek flickered across his features. Charm, pleading, a familiar half-smile. "Annie," he mouthed, "come on, help me." She just looked at him. When it was over, when the plea bargain was entered and the conditions laid out, probation, restitution, mandatory financial counseling, a big ugly note on his record, she waited in the hallway outside. They wheeled him past in handcuffs, no longer the big provider with big dreams, just a grown man in county-issued socks and cheap shoes, escorted like a child who'd been caught stealing. "I came to tell you one thing," she said as he passed, echoing words she'd once only heard in stories. He glared at her. "You ruined my life," he spat. "No," she said softly. "You did that. I just stopped you from ruining mine with it." He opened his mouth, but the deputy nudged him forward. A moment passed. Anaya walked out of the courthouse alone. Outside, the afternoon sun was bright and indifferent. People rushed by with coffee cups and briefcases and strollers. Nobody knew that a woman in a simple work dress had just walked out from under a $500,000 shadow her own husband tried to hang over her head. She knew. That was enough. She went back to work. She took extra shifts when she could, not because she was drowning now, but because she had plans, a savings account in only her name, a weekend trip she'd always put off, maybe classes one day. The bank became just a bank again. But sometimes, when she walked past that branch and saw the glass doors and the posters about building your future, she caught sight of Camille inside at her desk, head bent over another file. And she'd think, some days the future isn't something you build. It's something you refuse to sign away. Did you feel the story in your chest? If you were in Anaya's place, what would you have done the moment the manager pulled you aside? Tell me in the comments, and tell me which city you're listening from, so we can connect there too. If this story spoke to you, especially if you've ever felt pressured to just sign a few papers, you can support the channel with a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories of Black women protecting their peace, their money, and their future. Thank you so much for your kind support. I'm waiting to read your thoughts about Anaya's choice. On the screen now, you'll see 2 more life stories I highly recommend. Stories of women who refuse to be somebody's backup plan. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. See you in the next life story, with love and respect.